I want to say take a seat. Please leave the seats in this room. That's one of those English phrases that can cause a lot of confusion and a lot of lost seats. We are just hanging on for another 30 seconds for our final speaker, who clearly wants to make a grand entrance. If we had a fanfare, we'd play it just to annoy him. We could start with intros. We will start with intros in a second. We'll give him another 30 seconds, then we'll make a start. He's just on his way. He's stood still long enough to WhatsApp me. Okay, can we give Chris Patnoe a big round of applause? I was just saying, Chris, we were just seeing if we had a fanfare for your entrance, like you were walking into a wrestling ring, which is exactly the tone we want for this panel, is a wrestling ring.
Absolutely right.
So sorry.
Okay, bang on time. Thank you, everybody. It's a great pleasure to have everybody here. I'm only going to do very, very quick intros because we have 35 minutes and I want us to be able to grapple with the issues as quickly as possible. So, can I welcome Susan Scott Parker, Bianca Prins, and Chris Patnoe. I just wanted to say that I'm chairing it today, and the background to setting this up was a thing we have called the Equitable AI Alliance. And the Equitable AI Alliance is an initiative of the Zero Project, and it brings together technology companies, advocates, disabled persons organizations to explore how AI can benefit people with disabilities, but also to identify some of the risks and challenges that are in the field, and very importantly, to think about how we address those risks. So that provides a sort of context for the discussion we're going to have today. You're going to see me keep glancing down at my phone. This isn't because I'm having a chat with anybody, it's because that's where all my questions are written for today. So let's kick off. Bianca, I'm going to give you the first question to start us off. This is sort of one of those weird questions. If you were in the audience today, what is the first question you would ask this panel?
That's a good one, David. I think one of the first questions which pops up at me, and it was also because of the previous panel, is actually that how can we make sure that everyone will benefit from AI? And there's nice stories, there's good explanations, but coming back to the Microsoft talk, how can we make that clear in plain language?
Chris, what would be your question to yourself?
Why doesn't it work already? Okay. Because we have this opportunity, we've watched it come. This is a technology that's been under development for 50 years. Why isn't it there now?
Okay. And Susan?
Why has so little attention been paid to the impact of HR technology on the life chances of people with disabilities?
Okay, so some good questions. And now you're going to have to answer some of those as the session goes on, but not yet. Let's talk about the challenges. And Susan, I'm going to come to you first. What do you see as the biggest challenge around the use of AI in the workplace?
I think it's quite simple, which is more than I can say for, is it working? It is working.
Yeah.
Oh, see, we can't even get microphones to work. I think there's a huge gap between the disability sector, the regulators, and the reality of business. And so the disability sector, governments aren't aware of the impact of how HR technology is being deployed, the way it's being deployed, the way it's developed, the way it's assessed. And so we're not even collecting the information, the insights into the impact on people with disabilities as candidates and, of course, as employees. because those that have an interest in the economic empowerment and the rights of disabled people haven't got a clue what's going on inside company after company as these badly trained HR people purchase and deploy badly designed technology. I said that last year, and nobody contradicted me, so I'm going to say it again.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants to contradict Susan later, please do. Bianca.
I was thinking about this one, and in the end, I come back to the risks I identified when I was looking into the AI Act and the European Accessibility Act for Europe. And 4 things stood out there. One is digital accessibility. You have to make sure your digital environment is accessible, and that also applies on AI. Secondly is using the right data. And it's really hard to use the right data if we don't measure on disability. So I would encourage businesses to increase self-identification programs and make sure that people with a disability can step forward so we can also learn and train our models. Third one is equal opportunity, actually equitable opportunity, because it's not just about the model recognizing that there's a person with a disability in a job application process, but also when do we need to make sure that the human steps in. And the fourth one, it's important to have an accessible process for grievance. If you don't agree, or if you think you are discriminated against, in a hiring process, in an evaluation process, progressing in your career, you should be able to address these points. And these are 4 crucial elements, and it's about employment, but it's also about the customer side, and they're really important.
Chris.
The microphones work, but the people do not. And actually that's going to completely change what I was about to say in terms of this question. People are the solution, but people are also the problem. The AI represents everything that we are, because as we learned from Utah yesterday, it's that the contraction and the extraction of likeness. But people are interesting. People don't know how things work. People do know how things work in their heads, and in reality they don't, because the technology changes so fast, expectations change so fast, biases are built in, but also biases are left out, because you can have a positive bias against things. So the interaction of humans and machine, the interaction of humans and the AI, it creates this vital space, this rich space for things to go wrong and have an opportunity to make things go better.
So recognizing some of those challenges that we've identified, what do we do about it? I don't think it's enough for us as a community just simply say these are the problems. We need to be taking that a stage further. Bianca, let's come to you first. What would you do? How would you address the challenges that you're talking about?
At first, what I did is I've been working on a policy for accessibility within ING for years now. And we actually included the risks which are related to AI in our policy, meaning that everybody within the organization who is working on any AI program or product must adhere to the requirements. And there's one specific requirement which helps there, because in a lot of cases when we talk about disability data, you also end up in the high risk AI elements, meaning that people have to be involved in the development. So then we really push them to connect to our employee resource groups, which we have in 7 countries now, meaning that they have to talk to them and see, okay, is this a product which can help you? We really encourage them to do that in the design phase. On the other side, I am also realistic, because there's also a lot of people say, oh, this is not efficient, it takes too much time. But it's about encouraging them, showing them when you include person with a disability early on in your design phase, your design is better and your product is developed in a faster approach. So it's really about showing the benefits, I guess.
Chris.
I'm trying to think hard about this. You can probably see the smoke coming out of my ears. it's this really interesting race between legislators and technology and people. Looking at the European Accessibility Act, I've never seen more work when it comes to accessibility in business than until we have this legislation. But all I can see are the things, the gaps that are there, the things that should have been included. So the legislation is always going to be late, but it provides a really important backstop. So what do? You need to have legislation that's thoughtful, that it is engaged. But you also need to have the expectations that the disability is included. And if you look at the larger companies, like the Googles and Microsoft and Apples, we have this more building products for everyone mentality, this more inclusive mentality. I'm not worried about the tools that the large companies make. For me, it's the small boutique AI solutions. It's the garages. It's the startups that are just moving so fast to build something, to get something out. They don't even know it's a question. They don't even know what question to ask. They even know there is a question to be asked. So,
how do we reach those people, Chris?
well, that's what we're trying to do with this group. And so in this collaboration we have, one of the ideas is we thought, let's go talk at conferences. And then we go to a conference and no one shows up. So that's not going to help. So then we were literally just yesterday, the day before yesterday, can we write blog posts? Can we do social media? But then you need to have a deep thought of who you're really trying to talk to, because you're going to talk to a legislator in one way, you're going to talk to a business in another way, you're going to talk to an influencer in another way, but it's the same message. You just have to sort of translate it authentically for each of these different groups.
And Susan, what would you add to this?
I've got such a long list.
No, this is succinct, Susan.
Succinct. Well, I'd like to see a switch where all these geniuses in AI provide individuals with the tools they need to navigate the problems created by the other AI tools. Okay?
Say that again.
Well, if I'm a job seeker with a disability, I could get an app that helps me to anticipate how I get around the fact that this is a 3-minute video thing and I need an extra 15 seconds because I stutter. So there must be a way of either helping me anticipate what's going through here, or helping me to, at the very least, capture the experience in such a way that we would have 10,000 people who stutter sharing that data about the experience. Second, in terms of this data obsession, data does not change human behavior. I know we think it do, but it don't. And so what we find is people want to make a change and then use data to justify doing what they've learned they should be doing anyway because they're learning it from human beings. Third, the kind of data in the workplace that we're concerned with, listen to this one. The NHS, more than 1 million employees, did a survey. 4.1% said, yes, I have a disability. 21% and change said they had a health condition. So when we're talking about disability data in the employment space, we should be looking at and health conditions, because many of those people are disadvantaged by disability-specific barriers, but would never dream of calling themselves disabled. So we need to open it up to the practicalities in the workplace. And third, I don't know, Chris, do you think that the buyer beware message is helpful here? Because somebody has to buy the stuff that garage outfit produced. And if we could find a way, as with aspirin packages, to say this package has these potential harmful side effects. No blind people were involved in this. The deaf probably aren't going to get through that interview module. And so focusing on the risk assessment that a multi-stakeholder group could do on popular products that the companies are using, helping them to look at which populations they are going to exclude, and then, I don't know, magically the regulators catch up and provide practical guidance that says it will be unlawful not to tell people what tools are going to be used that they're going to encounter so they can ask for adjustments.
Chris.
That's you just brought up the point I wanted to bring, is that this has to come from legislators, because only they have the ability to enforce the laws. You take a look at a lot of the accessibility laws and disability laws in the US, and until enforcement started happening, people weren't paying attention. What's making the European Accessibility Act so powerful is that there's real enforcement. There's money and potentially jail time. That makes people pay attention. So then the legislators have to catch up. And maybe this is something that this collaboration can do, is actually have a focus on legislators to try to come up with this smoke test of disability. you have to do these 3 things to warrant no check or a deeper check.
I'm interested, when we talk about AI in employment and the work, but we tend to go straight into this recruitment issue as probably the most significant. But I'm just interested, and Bianca, maybe you could answer this. Can you think of other ways in which there are challenges with AI in the workplace?
Yeah, I can, but I also want to give a short reply to Susan's first point. And the reason for that is when I was working on the AI Act in combination with the European Accessibility Act, there is one opportunity which can really help, because we found out in any case there always should be the option for the human in the loop. So if you need more time, if you have a problem with the AI system, you should be able to share that. And to make sure that there is a human interference in there and not just the system you're communicating with. And it calls for all systems. So from that perspective, it's also a bridge to your question. If we look at other things, one of the recent things, it was the Copilot report, which was shared by, if I correct, EY and Microsoft. Yes. It's interesting to see the opportunities this brings for people. And from part, I was testing it myself to see, okay, sometimes I can be quite blunt in my emails and say, okay, this is it. I'm Dutch, sorry. From that perspective, I put it in Copilot and I found out, oh, I can be a nicer person by email. This is a good thing. So if you're really direct or you just don't know how to say something, and I think especially for people in the neurodiverse space, this is something really nice. It can also be about describing something and for a person with low vision. So I think from that perspective, there are lots of opportunities in AI in the workplace. And if we look at advancing in the workplace, all these tools, yes, they can help for sure. But there's one thing we really have to think about, that if we bring tools into the workplace, they can also be used in the workplace. For example, speech-to-text software. I have great software which I would like to introduce, but it cannot pass a risk assessment because it's not safe, because data goes outside. You need to be able to use it just on your device or on an internal system. So that's so.
Susan, other examples?
Remind me of what?
Problems.
How it impacts in the workplace.
Yeah.
I was just listening. You can't think and listen at the same time. It's a long story. So
I can't do either.
So surveillance technology has to be really problematic. If you're using voice activated and it's counting how many clicks, and it hasn't been taught that some people out there, just a few, are going to not be clicking, it's a problem. I think the way people are now assessed for promotion, it's bound to be there. We're seeing AI determine whether you get a bonus in a grocery store operation. When they got 350 stores, then the AI assesses your performance, but the reason you're a bit slower, and you agreed with your boss you could be a bit slower because of your disability, isn't taken into account in the assessment, and you don't get your bonus. It goes everywhere. But, okay. I get one more thing to say later, right?
Oh, you get lots of things to say later.
Oh, good. Okay.
Chris.
I'm going to go down the more techno-optimist route. Sorry, Susan.
We're going to come on to that next, so this is a good segue. Thank you.
Slightly techno-optimist. So, Bianca, to your point, I think what people need to realize is the tools that can help you probably exist today. And if you don't know what they are, they can't help you. So, for example, the risk assessment you said for these speech-to-text tools, Google Chrome, and I don't mean to shill, but the Google Chrome browser has the ability to create captions on device. If you play a video in many languages, it can create the captions for you on your device. There's no risk because nothing is going off. But it also, because of the work we did with the deaf-blind community, it could also create transcripts. So now you can be deaf-blind with the Chrome browser and read from a Braille display the context of a video, the captions of a video. So the AI, when thoughtfully designed, when carefully co-designed, can be really powerfully helpful. This is helpful for schools and for workplaces, and it's secure. But if you don't know about it, it can't help you. So that's another one of the things that we need to do in our work, is to raise awareness of these tools. It's true about accessibility, and particularly it's true about that intersection of AI and accessibility, because there's this fear of AI, which is legitimate, but if you think it is only about ChatGPT and Gemini, you're forgetting speech-to-text, computer vision, text-to-speech, and all these other things that are built into your world today that you may never think about.
And I want to pick that up, and I want to sort of try and move us through a little bit to a slightly more optimistic view, not to deny all the issues we've talked about. There is no doubt that AI is also having positive impacts in the workplace. So the example I was given recently was the ability for more people who are deaf to work from home because of the quality of the AI-generated captions available through video conferencing software. So there's been more of an equality there in terms of participation, hybrid working. But Bianca, maybe can you give us something, a positive example of how you've seen AI used?
It's a good one. I think one of the positive examples is just what Chris is giving on the captioning part. There's many tools which offer a lot of solutions, but it also is about bringing them in the right option. So from that perspective, yes, I see speech-to-text software, which really helps people to communicate with people around them. And it can be people who are hard of hearing or people who are deaf, but it can also be people with a stutter, for example. So from that perspective, I see a lot of them. But if you really have to think of one, I think you're not allowed to use it in our office, but if you have the glasses and you have the descriptive to recognize people, I forgot the name from it.
Be My Eyes?
Yeah, the Be My Eyes, thank you. If you have the Be My Eyes and it says, hey, this is the person in front of you, this is really nice because it helps you recognize people if you're, for example, at a conference and you don't recognize people. Yes, unfortunately, you cannot use it in our office. It's okay, I accept that, but on the other side, in other opportunities, it would be a great tool to use. So, yes,
Susan.
I think that would be.
I struggle to find meaningful examples of how technology is being deployed by HR. But I do see that there's a real opportunity.
Okay, let's go beyond HR.
I know, but
it's
that's
not just the HR departments.
Well, but we haven't been able to talk about technology, AI determining whether you get life insurance, whether or not you stay in prison longer. I mean, our focus in a 35-minute chat has been pretty much on in the workplace, and this is an employment conference.
Yeah, but people are using AI in the workplace, and it's not just about HR.
Well,
it's
that's true, and I was
Yeah.
going to say, I really was going to say,
Good.
the tools themselves can be brilliant. I mean, you know, you get a screwdriver that really works, great. But the point is that the tools are deployed by human beings, and these are specific tools that determine whether or not you get the job, whether or not you keep your job, whether you get promoted. It's the tools deployed by people in the business that have a direct impact on people that I've been focused on. But of course, some of these tools are fantastic for the individual trying to then, you know, compete on an equal basis. The tools I'm interested in are the ones that won't allow them to compete on an equal basis because they couldn't get in the first place.
And is anybody doing it well?
I couldn't find any. Please tell me somebody is.
Okay, there's a challenge for anybody from the companies.
Yes.
Chris, we've been hearing a lot of people talking about how they're using AI to generate products to support access and inclusion. Both in terms of what you've seen here and what you know more broadly, have you got any examples of how AI is being used to unlock the potential of employees with disabilities?
They're small but meaningful. So, for example, we have the Accessibility Discovery Center in several of our places in EMEA. And in our London center, we have a new station on neurodiversity. And I'm not going to talk, we've already talked about captions, but I want to talk about some of the neurodiversity use cases. One of the things that I find really interesting, and we queried autist Googlers, say, what do you use for AI? And two really interesting use cases came out. One was for understanding metaphors. So neurotypicals often use, like, it's raining cats and dogs. And if you haven't heard it before, often some people who are autistic won't get these kinds of metaphors. So what is raining cats and dogs mean? I thought that was interesting. It never occurred to me. The second one, what does this joke mean? So this one Googler has a Gemini screen, and every time the entire room starts laughing, they look up what the joke is supposed to mean. But it struck me as an American living in England, I do the same thing for the same reason, because I don't understand 1980s English television. I don't understand all of these things that people find very, very funny in the pub, because I don't have that culture. So you could say that I have some kind of cultural impairment being an American, and you don't say that, please don't. It's too soon, too soon.
Feel free to quote that on all social media.
So the point I'm trying to make is these tools can be subtle, they can be powerful. Of course, as someone who's dyslexic, if someone sends me a 17-page paper, I'm not going to read the whole thing, because if I read it 3 times, I get 3 different papers. So I put it in a Gemini and ask it to get what are the key points and cite where these points come from, so I can eliminate the concern about hallucination. So these technologies are very individualistic, and they're brilliant. But everything Susan said is true, but there is also benefits to these as well, as long as you validate it makes sense to you for your needs.
Yeah. Bianca, examples that you've seen and come across where AI is supporting people with disabilities well in the workplace?
Sorry, have you got examples where it's working for disabled individuals?
Yeah, we had that. I had them.
She was first.
I was first.
Yeah, I'm going to let you go again.
Now, to be honest,
I haven't got any.
the
I'm coming
thing
to you
is-
next. I'm giving you time.
The thing is, I think it starts actually with making sure that your policy is all in order. If your policies are in order, and sorry, I'm coming back because I'm not a technical person. It's really about making sure that within the base of any product you are buying as a company, you have to make sure it's inclusive of persons with disabilities, meaning if it's AI, we also have to have the same measures. So what do we really need to have for an AI product? I think it's about establishing that. And if I come back to Susan's point in there, is how can we make sure? Because I'm also searching for what questions could we exactly ask when we talk about accessible AI? Because I would say, yes, you have to be compliant with, in our case, EN 301549 when it comes to digital. It has to be equitable, so it has to provide equal opportunities. On the other side, that's also quite hard to test because our group, and then I speak as a person with a disability, is so diverse, nobody is the same. So from that perspective, I think it's also something we have to discover in the coming time, and then we can give a good answer to your question. And maybe that will take 10 years. That's also a possibility. And maybe it's next year.
And Susan, we're struggling with the recruitment. We accept all the issues in terms of people's transition through employment. But where do we see AI having a positive impact?
I told you I wasn't going to be able to answer that, David. I don't see it. I just don't. But I do have a positive point to make, if I may, which is I think the opportunity for us is to move away slightly from the argument that this is all about people with disabilities and start to say that actually almost everybody who's looking for work is complaining about how it feels and what the experience is when they're trying to get a job online. And that actually, if we can get these processes to work better for people with disabilities, every graduate leaving university who's trying to get a job at Google is going to, well, not Google, that's a very bad example. I'm sure yours is perfect. But everybody who's trying to get a job online is going to have a much better chance of proving that they have the capability to do that job. They're not going to be assessed badly because they can't hold a game control. Well, actually, most of the jobs those game control assessments are working for don't require you to be able to do games. You know, it's just, there's a fundamental mismatch here. And we see that with the Gartner report saying 34% of new hires in the large business community leave within 3 months. This process isn't working for anyone. So maybe we can rally support around this in a positive way, David, by saying we can make this stuff work better for every job seeker on the planet if we focus on making it work properly for people with disabilities and health conditions.
But we are seeing better and better assistive technologies created with the integration of AI. We're seeing communication software for people without a voice that reflects tone, that reflects context and the person that you're talking to. We're seeing improvements in screen reader technology. We're seeing improvement in captions. So I do want to make this very clear point that AI does have a positive impact in the workplace, because as accommodations, AI is making better accommodations. Getting those accommodations may become more challenging.
Damn right, or getting in the first place.
So, if we recognize there is a community that is developing AI that is having a positive impact, how do we take what we learn from that experience and apply it to the concept of inclusive AI, where people with disabilities are included in the design of much broader, wider AI? Chris, how can we take those lessons?
I think it starts with humility to realize that we didn't get it right to begin with. You can't fix what you don't understand. You can't fix what you don't measure. So we need to understand that we're going to make a mistake because we are human, and the AI that we create is based off of humans. So we have to realize that there's going to be mistakes made and have a process to roll in the feedback to make these things better. That's one thing.
Bianca.
I'm actually sort of following up on that one, because I think we have to recognize that we have to be at the base of finding good data, making sure that it's representative for persons with disabilities and other health issues. And I think in the third one, it's also recognizing that AI has to work with humans, because it should be a combination. We all don't like to talk to a chatbot, at least I don't know any people who like a chatbot. So from that perspective, I think it should be more coexistent and not changing in a world where you only interact with AI. We should have the combination. And then I think we could resolve many things also named by Susan here.
Susan, can we learn anything from this?
Well, yes, we can learn that the tools can be brilliant. And we should be focusing on the people who use the tools and hold them to account for how they use those tools. I don't mean the individuals, I mean the corporate people. I mean the employers, how they're using the tools and how they allow people with disabilities who use the tools permission to use those tools. So,
we started off by putting these people in the audience to ask questions of themselves. We've got time for maybe 1, 2 short, sharp questions from the floor. Yeah, at the front here.
Why don't we advocate for legislators to license artificial intelligence solutions only if they meet accessible criteria? So a kind of, I'm not sure if the European Accessibility Act, I didn't study it enough, maybe you can clarify, has this set criteria for artificial intelligence to be, to be accessible. What is the minimum, what are the minimum criteria?
Short, sharp, succinct.
So, can we do that? Can we advocate for a license that is also only given when the solution is accessible?
Okay, Bianca.
I think it's a good question, and actually the AI Act already includes digital accessibility standards in there. This is the first law which directly references to both the EAA, to the Web Accessibility Directive, to the UN CRPD to make sure it's accessible. The point there is, and that's one of the things, it should be in the articles and not in the, I forgot the name, first.
Preamble?
The preamble, because that, but not a lot of people don't read that part. So it has to be more clear in the articles, in the law. I agree on that, but it is, the first step is there, and I think it's a good step.
Chris.
And then we need enforcement.
Yep.
With any legislation without enforcement will have no impact.
Susan.
And we need to tell disabled people they have rights. I don't see any equality body in Europe telling anybody with a disability in work what rights they're going to have or have now.
Time for one more question, I think. I think one of the partial answers to your question is the cat is already out of the box and the box has been stamped on, so we have to move quickly. Yeah,
What's the role of the employers in this picture?
That's a good question. Bianca.
Oh, again. I'm again. Yeah, I work at a business. So yeah, from that perspective, I think the role of the employer is there to make sure that, as I said, if you procure any software which is working with AI, you have to make sure that it is compliant with your internal policy, which should be addressing equitable access to employment for persons with disabilities. So from that perspective, I think it really lies in the fact that you have to make sure that you have your requirements in a row. Anybody?
Okay, we have 20 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, which is you guys, in considering the balance of challenges and benefits that characterizes AI, where do you stand on the issue? Is AI guilty because you fear the risks? Or is AI innocent because you have excitement at the opportunities? Hands up if AI is guilty. Do you fear the risks more than you recognize and welcome the opportunities? Fear the risks. You lean towards fearing the risks. Up high, come on, come on, come on. Valuing and seeking the opportunities.
Are there HR directors out there?
Chris, risk or opportunity? No,
Both.
You guys would have been a nightmare in the Colosseum. Nobody would have known if they were going to go to the
No,
Lions or
I'm
not.
sorry, it was a thumb off to the side, not thumb up, not thumb down, it's the middle.
Me too. It's both. It's not one, it's both. It's a tool.
Agreed, it's both, because you have to make sure the barriers are set.
And on that note, let's come back in a year's time with more opportunities, more examples, and hopefully an agenda that's moved forward. Thank you very much to our panel. Thank you very much, everybody.
Fewer risks.